Now that we're ready.
For this conversation.
Yes. I am so happy to be speaking with you today. Welcome everyone who is joining us on this video conversation. My name is Edgar Fabián Frías, and I'm here with Friday with the Fellows through the Oklahoma Center for the Humanities. We are so grateful to be having this incredible conversation today with LA-based artist Este Sanchez. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of their incredible practice, their practice that has been so inspiring for me, has been really helping be a beacon, a reminder. And I'm so excited to show some of their work and also to show some work that the both of us have done together. And then after that, and then also we're going to be having a conversation about the importance of play, of performance, of movement, of being in your body, of reclaiming, movement and being in your body, all of these wonderful themes. But before we start, Estee, I'd love for you, if you want to share a little bit about yourself, about who you are. Yeah, and maybe about also if you want to share a little bit about how we met too.
Yeah. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm an LA-based artist. I mostly work through the mediums of performance and friendship. And I feel like, and recently I've started navigating into exploring video as a medium, exploring just another aspect of performance. I grew up in the Coachella Valley, which is a very rural part in Southern California. I am Latinx, Chicanx, Indigenous, and I identify as non-binary, which all these intersecting parts of my identity, I explore that in in the work that I do. So the way that I met Edgar, well, I remember early on, maybe, was it 4 or 5 years ago? I don't even know. Times. I started just exploring the character or this embodiment who's called Chloe Martinez. And anyway, I feel like connecting with Chloe opened this portal that brought us together. Because at the time I was going to school out in another part of in Pomona, out in the middle of SoCal, not too far away from LA. But at a certain point, Edgar and I had connected because we're interested in we're mutants that are interested in the same thing. And we both grew up in the desert of Southern California, in a specific part where it's just oh, you're from there, I'm from there, what?
Right.
And so, yeah, and then we're just talking about the art that we're interested in, and we synchronistically, Edgar missed their train, going back to LA, so we had more time to talk, and yeah, and we just had a lot in common, and just the things that we're interested in terms of exploring in our art practices, in our art as magic practices. We make art, but we also make friendship. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're art collaborators. And we're friends, and I think that's an important part of our work together too, so yeah. How do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing about also Chloe Martinez, and hearing about how you brought a lot of like play and performance into that program, and also that I needed to meet you. You were highly recommended as someone for me to connect with. um, so yeah, I remember us meeting and immediately kind of having like a connection and wanting to get to know each other more. And then I remember, like you said, I missed a train, and then also I remember inviting Chloe to participate in an exhibition that I did in Los Angeles. And then from there, I feel like we started working on projects, and that's definitely one of the things I wanted us to talk about is some of the work that you and I have done together, and also showing the reason why I got inspired for us to make this video is showing some of the most recent work that you've been doing during this pandemic, and I think that that's something that I think is important, and part of the theme of this like video of like the importance of movement and play and moving your awareness down into the body, entering into altered states. I thought maybe I can do a little screen share and we could start showing a little bit of work, and then we can talk a little bit about it, if that's okay with you. So how about we start, before we go into your amazing Instagram, I'll start with a little bit of the videos of our performance practices that we've done together. So here, let me share my screen. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so this is my website here, and this is the one of the first projects that we worked on together. It was a project called Give Us Home Spider that happened in 2017, and it was a project that I did in all of Southern California, including the Coachella Valley that Este said that they're from. And that was where we did one of our performances together, which I want to show a little clip. And so this project was at the Coachella Valley High School. Um, and Este and I went with my partner Thaddeus Pedicic, and we were dropped off by Este's mom in the desert, and it was like 100 and something. I'm pretty sure she was freaking out, wondering what we were doing.
Yeah.
And she probably had a good reason, because what we ended up doing was pretty amazing, powerful, scary, intense.
Yeah.
So I'll show a little bit of it.
And um, and in this video, I was embodying the energy or the entity of the divine mirror. So it was meant to be reflective, like reflecting back. Um, well, I didn't know what when I went into the performance, but reflecting back by the end, realizing reflecting back what the land or the space that we were performing or like initiating the ritual in was feeling, or what they were experiencing.
And I think that's a big part of your practice is really tuning into land, right? Tuning in to the space, kind of allowing the land to, inspire you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes you don't know how the inspiration will manifest, but that's part of like incorporating play or even improvisation into like a performance, or or a ritual. Like you don't know what your mom's gonna you don't know what your mom's gonna say to you before she tells you. Like
Right.
the moment she tells you, you're not gonna know any moment before or any moment before that. So I guess in this case, the mother was the palm tree grove. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's definitely one of the other many interconnections between you and I is that you and I, we work very intuitively with our practice, and we allow it to kind of unfold. And that for me as an artist is one of the most exciting parts of art practice is being able to kind of witness what emerges, what unfolds.
Mhm.
And for this last one from this project, Give Us Home Spider, this one was filmed in my parents' house in Bloomington, California, which is in Southern California. And for this project, we made a ceremony at an abandoned quarry that is about a mile from my parents' home. And there was about 13 people who participated. And the reason why we went to this quarry was because I was exposed to a toxic chemical named hexavalent chromium as a young person, and we wanted to offer our voices, offer love to the land and to the land ancestors, and as a way to kind of heal the space. And that was a big part of the intention behind this whole project. So I'll show just a little bit of footage here too. Here we are entering the quarry area. And Esther, do you want to talk a little bit about your inspiration for the character or the being that you embodied during this ceremony?
Yeah. Um, so so initially, like I guess in terms of the process of coming to who was going to participate in like this ritual. I remember in the like maybe even like 30 minutes before not knowing. But I think
Right.
knowing is important. It's important. Like I think it's like it can be scary because we're always supposed to know, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's important to give yourself. It's important like in my process to give myself the space to not know. It's like it also invites like a lot of vulnerability and like uh, deep or not deep, um, just trust. And so during the course of this performance, I feel like I came to realize who they were by the end, and the and it all just like in terms of like synchronicity or just like the force is um, greater than like or what we can see. They're always communicating with us. And sometimes it's through like inspiration or it's through like something that like we sense or like we desire, just like I'm like, oh, that's pretty, like that. You're just like, oh, cool, but it's like also we're being communicated with. And so like from like you had like cloths laid out, and so just like trusting and playing, that everything was going to come together exactly how it needed to, and then having brought props and things like that, and trusting that everything was aligned in the way that it needed to be. And so during the like performance, I just remember sensing like deep despair, just like deep bodily sadness, and it came out in like this kind of like gut wrenching like cry, and so and the creature was kind of like hunched over, shrouded, and had these like arm limbs that made sound as they dragged like against the ground. Um, and in reflection, by the end, I kind of and like, and also in relationship to all the other like amazing people and performers that were there with us that day. It just felt like that was also this, what was being called in was the kind of like the violation of the space, like that feeling
Right.
of being violated, because like all like because the ecological devastation and also like the devastation to the people like that, like the people of color that grew up in these areas, like that's a violation, you know, like that's done without their consent, like that's done without the consent of what like any space wants to do for the people that live on it, you know.
Right.
um, and so I that was the and that's the feeling that that was the aspect of the space that came up that way.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And I feel like, yeah, there's a way that when we kind of move our awareness down into the body, and this can happen a lot with ceremonial practices or with embodied movement practices, right? We kind of have a way of kind of being able to move our awareness and tap into something else, and to really feel into the kind of the resonances, the sensations, the things that are left behind. And, do you mind sharing a little bit about, as we're talking about this right now, like how for you, you've worked with altered states or with movement practices or with embodiment, and what movement has been like for you? Yeah, how has movement helped you?
I feel like, well, whew, big question.
Yes.
um, wow. I mean, I feel like in the words of Octavia Butler, the only constant in life is change. God is change.
Right.
And I feel like maybe instead of change, I would say movement. Um, and so movement has always felt like this way of tuning out, like, you know, like the like tuning out the voice of like, oh, I don't know, or da 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 da, and being able to connect to a higher wisdom, or I wouldn't, maybe not higher, but just like guidance that I like, a trustworthy guidance from the universe, or from creator, or whatever like analogous like word that people might say, you know, like according to their like specific beliefs. Um, So, and there's so many aspects to creation, you know, and I feel like movement allows me a space to connect with like specific aspects of that, or like specific guidances or wisdoms from that I can, that's translated through movement, and not even just the movement you see, but also like the sensations that I feel as I'm moving, you know, like to the feeling. Through the course of movement, I've learned that I connect to other spaces through feeling. And so it creates a space for me to feel and to also turn that feeling into something. And in terms of embodiment, embodiment, I feel like in another word is empathy. You know, it's like realizing that in that like all that is exists in my soul and my spirit, and but it just it's contained as its own unique shape. And being able to embody is being able to see that if I give the shape of my spirit space to shift, to change form, like as if it's clay, you know, then
Mm.
then it can take on the form of anything that exists, you know, and that's like scary and also deeply humbling. And um,
So I think in a way you're kind of, you're talking about how movement and play or entering into embodied states can be used as a tool, right? As a way of kind of working with energy, moving energy, shifting energy.
oh yeah.
And also, as you're naming, which I think is really powerful, is empathizing and being able to tune in with
Mm-hmm.
parts of yourself, with other parts that surround us, and to really connect to something. And I think that's a really big yeah, part of why I feel like embodiment is something important to really also kind of share with the people who are going to be watching this, that this is something that they can tune into themselves and really,
Yeah.
work with during this time. And, I definitely would want to segue from there and show a little bit of what you've worked on, and, show a little bit about how you've been most recently connecting with embodiment. I'm going to go to your Instagram.
it.
Yeah, so I'm going to be linking this Instagram account for people who are interested in seeing it. I'm going to be linking it so people can go check out some of this work. But we'll start with your most recent video. And let me just press play.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh, I'm also wearing red there.
I love that.
No, I love
Yeah,
red.
so much energy coming off of that. I love the bunny there. So amazing. So I'd love for, yeah, just to, maybe I'll show a couple more. And if you want to talk while we're showing a couple of the other dance videos about how you've been working with movement during this time and what movement has maybe been doing for you during this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like um, movement has been preserving, like, it's been a space of preserving hope, but also like doing like deep processing just around like what's coming up, like collectively around the virus, like around the coronavirus, and also just like the parts of self that get like um, that get that feel hurt, maybe in relationship to it or not in relationship to it at all. So it's like each like the ability to step into to like give myself the permission to connect to another, like to like let's say in the first video it was chocolate, then like in that connection, like there's some like one, like it's kind of like a way of honoring chocolate, right? And then but also like because everything's always related, and whenever we give we also receive, so or I say that to mean like we're also like I feel like I also receive in that moment like an embodied like elixir from the movement, that's in relationship to the energy of what it is that I'm embodying. So like okay, like chocolate, there's like a smoothness, there's like this like deep rootedness that comes to chocolate too, and like this luxuriousness. And in that moment I definitely felt like I needed those things. So I mean it's been a space of like deep release, but also like taking my medicine. And then also,
Right. Like, yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say, that, and like with this video called Limpia Hechizo Spell, Hugs for Us. And this is definitely, when you're calling it a spell or a limpia or an hechizo,
Mhm.
there's definitely, an intentionality behind the movement. And I love the word potion that you said.
Yeah.
Seeing these movements as potions, as medicine for us in the moment, right? And I think definitely, I think one thing that, you've really inspired me in like medicine from that I've received from your work is that it's really been a constant reminder to move into my body and to have those moments, right? Those moments of medicine, of potion, where
Mhm.
I can really allow what is needing to emerge for me at that time, right?
Yeah.
And I really feel like that is something, I really want to just remind people that that's always available to us. It's a free medicine that we have available. And it's something that can really be supportive, especially when we're maybe spending a lot of time, watching media or just being, just sitting or being in our heads a lot, thinking a lot, is knowing that movement, the potion, the medicine of movement and of play and of just intuitive moving is always available for us, right?
Yeah. And movement is something that we all can access, like, and that's the beauty about, I think there's like sometimes there's narrative around movement that's like am I doing it the right way? Like, am I the right way? Like, am I doing, like this need to be right? That's like in that we're that's like that's not by accident, like, because that's what we're shown. And like we're shown that there's a right way to move our bodies, like there's a wrong way to move our bodies. And that's a tool of like alienation, and it's like also like what happens when there is no right, when there is no wrong, where like the way that you feel and the way that you're moving is like exactly what it needs to be. Like what type of reconnection, what type of um, like what does that liberate in you, when you're allowed to accept that, that like you are right, like you are right. No.
Right. The way you show up in this world is right,
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're fully authentically expressing yourself, I mean, like what you're feeling through movement, then there is no right or wrong. And I think that's also part of the energy or the medicine, like in movement, in ritual, in performance, in play, because that's a big part of it. Like play is like that space of deep authenticity, where it's like with you or with other people, that's like, because I feel like it's really easy to be without truth, because sometimes truth is hard, because we're not allowed, we're not allowed to feel pleasure in certain ways, or we're told we're not allowed to. And then, but play is that space where it's kind of like, well, fudge it. I don't know. It does, like, like fudge it, like this is the truth. And sometimes you discover the truth through it. And that's what feels fun about it, because it's that truth, it's like your truth that's coming out in a way that may not be like socially like acceptable, or maybe it is, who knows, but that feels good because it's in alignment with like this authenticity,
Right. And I think that goes back to what you were talking about with empathy, right? Being able to connect and tune in with what's happening, how you're showing up, to really let yourself feel how you're showing up. And I think, play, performance, ceremony, I think these are words that we've been using in some ways interchangeably, right? And I think I wanted to show a little video that you made recently that was a part of a creative ceremony that I hosted. This is a really beautiful video that was inspired by the experience of divination that we did together. Let me just play it for just like a little bit.
Let me grab my detergent. Yeah. And
Wow, so powerful.
I remember, like, from just like the workshop process, the waxing moon ceremony that you held. Um, Part of it was coming, I think that's also like a part of like channeling ideas, or allowing for ideas to come into us. There's so many ways, sometimes it's called divination, like there's so many, sometimes it's called divination, or sometimes it's called, or like
Or play, right? Or sometimes it's called taking a moment for yourself, or sometimes it's called, just seeing what will happen if you move into something, right?
you have all these interchangeable words, and it's all the same. And I feel like choose one of those words. Okay, we were playing in the workshop, or we were playing in the ceremony, whatever.
Right.
And like in that space, like there were like we did like a play meditation, and um, and there were just like images that came through, and then like at the end there was also space to start of your workshop. There was like space to start forming the images that came through into like a form that we could carry on after. And so this was what came out of that. And part of it was I saw this image of a bird, and then like sensorially like felt called to do, instead of doing something that felt like a full body movement that was like isolated to one part. And so that's where the image of the hands came. And then just like themes around decay and regeneration and renewal, which instinctually felt tied to like mushroom magic and mushroom medicine. So those were, so then just like, okay, now let's play some more.
Yeah, and I think, and you bring up mushroom medicine, and I think it's really important to talk about how, these moments of connecting with certain medicines, where whether it's movement or mushrooms or other sacred plants that we could connect with, like ginger, or there's so many plants that we can connect with to have moments that are sacred moments of allowing kind of this altered state to take us over, right? And play is an altered state as well. And I feel like that's where, there's an intersection here of health, resiliency, creativity, being able to also feel like you have the ability to affect change in the world. And I think, as a mystic, these are things that are all connected to our inner will, or our feeling of being able to have power in the world. And, you've brought up clay a few times, and I wanted just to share this image from our past, from 2018, from the archives. We had a yeah, we had a workshop called Shape-Shifting Talismans, Tactical Totem Magic with Clay. And so just also showing this as a reminder that, this is a tactical magic system. Play is magic. Play, and, as Esta said earlier, there are so many words that we can use interchangeably, and that we can really, kind of whatever feels the most comfortable for you, whatever you need for it to be a portal for you to enter into that space, what's good for you. And so trusting yourself when it comes to kind of knowing how to enter into these spaces. And before I hop off my screen, I wanted to show last your most recent video that you did with Chloe. I think that video is so amazing. Um,
And so, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You want to say something?
oh my gosh, so inspired.
I was so inspired too by Chloe. And I think that's also the power and beauty of like drag. Like that's the power and beauty of embodiment, where it's like, okay, where it's like, that's the power and beauty of Chloe.
Right.
I do not identify as Chloe. And I think that's a really important distinction that I had to learn also. Um, but I love Chloe. I also am like sometimes annoyed by Chloe, but I love her. And but it segues to drag too. But I think like the Chloe is the medicine I turn to when
Mm.
I need to step into someone that has like a, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can say, there's nothing that you can X and X that can dislodge me from like my like from like my like absolute belief in um like in the divine force, in divine forces, and specifically to Chloe, she uses the word Dios or Diosa. So Dios is kind of like queering, like the kind of the queer, expansive, like lens that we can channel, or we can view the all creation or the universe from.
Right.
But so she has like this confidence, just Chloe Martinez confidence, you know, and
I know I definitely notice the difference in your demeanor when you enter into those spaces. And I think that, you know, you're speaking to the importance of creating also like containers and sacred vessels for our practice. And these vessels could be people, they could be beings, they could also be concepts. And you and I yesterday were in a ceremony where we embodied different concepts. It was called Navigating the Vortex with Yunwen Ri. We all, there was a group of us kind of embodied different concepts, allowed those to be containers for movement, for play, for exploration, for curiosity. So yeah, so I'd love for you, you said you had a video you wanted to show also, and I'd love for you to show a little bit of your most recent work, because I wanted to just share that you had a solo show recently. Congratulations. Do you want to share a little bit about your solo show and maybe share some of this work also that you had in the solo shows that people are going to get to see here?
definitely. Let me pull up let me show you the video. Or no, let me give you the context for the show and then
Okay, sounds good.
the show was called Este Sanchez, like um, shapeshifting personas. And so in the show, it was all kind of centered around like exploring the the portal or the energy center that is our root chakra, and are all the themes that are attached to it, because there are very many ways to think about like the portals that exist in our bodies, you know, and that's like one common, you know, and that's one way. So using the root chakra as a lens of like connecting and exploring the relationship between two embodiments or personas or characters, whatever you want to say, that I've connected to, or that where we've built a relationship together.
Right.
One of them's name is Quachilique, and the other one is kind of nameless, really, but like I refer to them as shapeshifting.
Mm.
And I think what's important is like to speak also is that those, I feel like I've grown with those two characters, like it's kind, or those two entities, those two embodiments, and who they were, who I was in the beginning of getting to know them. Like that's the beauty of it too, because we're in transformation together. And so the show is an exploration of just that journey, that like cyclical spiral journey of transformation, being able to look back at where we brought each other.
Right.
And so Coatlicue is based off of the Mexica pantheon. She or they are considered like the mother of beasts. She definitely has been a portal. Like she's most definitely been a portal. Like I'm here today because of her, you know. So I'm really grateful for her and everything that, like the path that she's led me on.
And what's so amazing is the artist from last night's ceremony, Yunwen Ri, when we met, it was because of her as well. She was working on a project connected to her energy. And so I love the like cyclical kind of web energy here of her bringing us all together.
Yeah, and she's like, "You're all my kids. Now get together and play." So yeah, so part of it was her, and I have like a video of like footage that like of her exploring the Coachella Valley, and so her name is Quachilique because instead of Quetzalique, because I tried to ground her in my understanding of home in my relationship to the Coachella Valley, kind of as a way of making something that culturally specific now become like specific to space, like become specific to my relationship to land as a way of personalizing and trying to make my relationship to my cultural inheritances, my indigenous inheritances, relationally specific to my lived experience.
Do you want to show us the video?
So I'll show you the video, and then I'll tell you about shapeshifter. Okay, I'll play here. And so Kachimiko is also like a plant consciousness. So she's connected to cactus, and so in this video, she or they are like literally digging, excavating, and it's a metaphor for like the excavation of what lies beneath the earth, like an excavation for like excavating home, you know.
Right, and it sounds like that was something that was, as you were saying, personalizing this to you, right? And kind of it is like a way really connecting it to your own relationship to the land.
Yeah. And so also I think part of something that's important, something that's a part of the video is that the video footage is shot by my mom.
Right.
So a way of like exploring or just like building relationship with my mother, as like a queer weirdo mutant that I don't think she ever expects to bear, and it's definitely been something that's like in the process of its creation has allowed us to go on a journey together where it's like, where now I don't feel uncomfortable performing in front of her naked, which is a huge thing because can you imagine?
I know. I love your mom for being open to these kinds of experiences and to being so supportive. That is so incredible. I remember when you and I worked together, I was nervous about what she was going to think about us going out into the desert on a day where it was like 110 degrees. And, I think you've really, you've worked with her so much that she's totally like, was like, okay, I know my mutant child has their mutant friends,
Blessing, and it's also like, it's a huge blessing. So I know that's not the case for most people, and any of like the performances that we all do, like just that even it's about the relationships just as much as like the relationship is part of the process, is part of like what we see here on the screen,
right.
Like it becomes an archive for so much more than just what you can see, but I hope that like you can feel it, even if it's not just something that you see, where it's, and so maybe go.
And I'm just thinking about how this video is an archive too, right? And how, we're making an archive a little bit about our experiences together, some of the work that we've done together, and how, that's kind of also in a way where, we can think about where with movement, with embodiment, with performance and play, how those can really also be kind of personal archives, personal records of where we are in the moment, right? And if we document them, then that can also become like an actual archive of like a journal process or a process of just exploring relationships as you're naming. I'd love to see a little bit of the shapeshifter now, if you want to show us a little bit of that video. Yeah, and maybe just share a little bit about who the shapeshifter is or what interests you in working with the shapeshifter energy. As you said, it's been with you for a moment.
For a hot second.
Hot second, yes.
So I feel like I identify as a shapeshifter. Shapeshifter and I started coming together long before the image of shapeshifter. Like before we met, like I met the image of shapeshifter. And so shapeshifter is like also metaphor for for queer trans journeys. It is like a metaphor for living in like a embodied truth beyond gender, or beyond our understandings of masculine or the feminine, you know, that can be, which are both expansive and also just one model for existing or understanding what gender tries to get at. For a long time, I'm still confused, and I hope I'm always confused because it's confusion feels like exploration, feels like curiosity. But I think like trying to understand myself within the framework of the masculine or the feminine it can be fun to explore like the limitations of both, but also doesn't fully speak to my truth. And so I feel like the way that I like define, like I've found like how I'm defining gender right now, which can change too. I feel like there's your spirit and then there's your body. And then there's this bridge that's built between the two. And that is gender, you know? And so because we've inherited models of viewing the divine in relationship to the masculine and the feminine, that's the bridge that we connect, that we've learned to connect our soul to our bodies with. Sometimes like thinking about, instead of gender as masculine and feminine, thinking of it as like different animal energies resonates more authentically with my body soul. And for, you know, and I'm like, and maybe it's like a color, like maybe it's like whatever, and they're all true because you can build that bridge of anything. And that bridge, you can have multiple bridges, like multiple metaphors of truths that are authentically create you or connect your body to your spirit, to like, so all creation, which there's so much, you know, of it, that there's so many ways to tap into and explore what your relationship is to it.
That's why I love the, you know, Diosekis, Godex, like expansive kind of deities to connect with, because as you said, a lot of deities are placed within the binary, and to kind of expand the genders and, like as you're saying, the spectrums and the things that we connect with gender, I think are really powerful practices. And, you know, as you're saying, so the shapeshifter, I think, is really, you know, it sounds like it really resonates with what you're naming, of kind of being able to move into different energies and knowing that your spirit maybe is always in flux. And I love that, kind of being confused or being curious, you know, as someone also who identifies as non-binary. I've kind of like allowed gender to like leave, but also knowing that there are things that I do that maybe play with this idea of gender, you know. But I think for myself, I'm very disinterested in some ways in terms of like what it means to be male or female, just that idea. And then really, really honoring that people get to claim that for themselves, self-identify, self-create. And I think that that's also what we're talking a lot about too, is that these kind of practices that we've been talking about are really also spaces where we get to claim and step into our sovereignty, and to really witness what that is, you know, beyond maybe a lot of the narratives that we've been forced to take in, right? So yeah, do you want to play a little bit of that video? I'd love to see some of it.
I want to play some of the video. Okay. Let me pull this up. And then, can you see it?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can hear the audio, but that's okay. So in this video, Shape Shifter's also digging in Este. So it's like kind of that metaphor. Yeah, like to ideas of home, security, safety, or even our relationship to the ancestral, because that's all stored in archive of each other. The red is also like the colors of so it was that's the purpose of that's the symbolism of the red.
And you're wearing red right now, right?
I'm wearing red right now. It's so funny.
Wow.
This was one of so those were this was the other video that was
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Este. And, I really do feel like these, two different representations, it really does, it speaks to what you're naming, like you're kind of in many ways creating your own story, your own narrative for yourself, right? You're really allowing these characters or these spaces, these vessels to be a place of exploration, of curiosity, to also really work with maybe parts of yourself that maybe need some working with, right? That need some kind of physical embodiment or exploration. And I think that's another kind of tool, another thing behind these practices, that they can be spaces for us to explore and expand into things that we might have questions about or that we're curious about within ourselves. Yeah, and so we're almost out of time, but I'd love to just hear if there's any last things you want to say, any last things you want to share, and also if people are interested in getting to know more about you, how they can kind of get to know more about you as well.
yeah. I mean everything that you said, and make it more accessible. Um, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like it doesn't have to be pretty, like I think giving oneself permission to, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like that's what I want to emphasize. Like there's no formula to like do this to do this, you intuitively know how to do it because you intuitively know how to play. All are always in need of something, like individually and like collectively, and we're all like gemstones that we can shape, and this embodiment can be a way of like receiving help in that shaping, because we don't always have to be like we can get help, we can get that help, and that help is readily available. Like that love is readily available in the things that are unseen, and also in the things that we don't see, and they're here to help us. So yeah, if that looks like putting on like a new shade of lipstick and then just calling yourself like, hey, my name's Mocha, whatever, that is a step into it. That is part of it, if it is like being like, I'm gonna play the song and I'm just thinking of the word refreshment, orange, cool, do it. That is the frame you are setting, and you are doing it. Like, can be as simple as that,
Right, we get to determine our frames and our vessels, and we get to create them. And I think that's also a really powerful message here, is that your frames, your vessels don't have to look like ours. And I think that's a gift, is that everyone gets to create their own. So yeah, and how do people get to know more about you, Este, if they want to find out more about your work?
If you want to find out more about my work, the best way is through my Instagram. I, in the future, will build a website. I'm speaking it into existence on this.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's the best way to, I post like dance videos or just videos that I'm making or that I have made, just in process and post process things on there.
Wonderful. And as I said, I'm going to link that Instagram here to make sure that people can see it. It'll be linked in the description of this video.
And
So make sure that people click on that and feel free to slide into Este's DMs if you want to send them a message.
yeah, no, it's like at Este_Ojo. So, but it'll be linked there too. But yeah, feel free and slide in my DMs if you want to talk about anything else or have any more questions just about anything that we talked about, that Edgar and I talked about here today. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I also will link my own Instagram account if people want to come check out my work. And also ways that you can see some of the things that I'm going to be working on. I'm really, really grateful, Este, for you being a special guest here on Friday with the Fellows. And this is sadly my last one that I'm going to be doing with the incredible Oklahoma Center for the Humanities, but I've been really grateful for this time and grateful that we can share this with our communities here in Tulsa, and really share some of these practices that I think have been really resourceful for us during these challenging times that we're living in. So thank you so much, Este. I send you so much love from Tulsa, Oklahoma to you in Los Angeles.
And all the love from LA to you, Edgar, out in Tulsa. I love you so much.
Love you
And
so much
I
too.
love everyone that's watching. I love all of you so much.